Thank you, Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Yoakum.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharp. Chair Higgins.
Here.
Commissioner Irving. Here. Commissioner Frank.
Here.
Commissioner Babb. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. I didn't get my email, so I'm going to have to.
I'll move that they're approved as presented.
Second? Have you seen them?
No. I would,
Okay.
I think it's hard to approve.
I have not. Did they were in the email? Because I never got that email.
Yeah.
So if I can ask that we retract that motion?
Pardon? I didn't hear him, I'm sorry.
Sorry, can, Commissioner Irving and myself have not seen the minutes. So we apologize. Apparently our emails didn't come through. So if we can retract that and just make a motion to table.
I certainly will retract the motion since you can't approve something you didn't see.
All right, we'll just do it on the next meeting, okay? I was just going to say that, so let's make a motion to table it till the
So
next.
moved.
Thank you. All those in favor to motion till the next meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Awesome. All right. 4.1 public hearing, GPA 20-03 McDavid Estates, a request by CVL Consultants on behalf of Maricopa 64 Partners LLC to amend the general plan future land use map for approximately 63.06 plus acres from existing employment E to medium density residential M and 3.04 plus acres from public institutional P to mixed use MU, generally located at the northeast corner of Loma Road and McDavid Road. Discussion only.
Right, Madam Chair. There's a call to the public on your agenda.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I was looking at the wrong one. I had two. All right, so let's retract that and go backwards. I do apologize, guys. Call of the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a speaker card and submit it to the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. The procedures to follow if you address the commission are: commission requests that you express your ideas in 5 minutes or less and refrain from any personal attacks or derogatory statements about any city employee, a fellow citizen, or anyone else, whether in the audience or not. The chairman will limit discussion whether whenever he deems such an action appropriate to the proper conduct of the meeting. Like to speak, please come forward. All right, well, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that and we'll go back to our agenda again. Yeah, but now I got to read it again. All right, now let's try this again. 4.1 public hearing, GPA 20-03 McDavid Estates, a request by CBL Consultants on behalf of Maricopa 64 Partners LLC to amend the general plan future land use map for approximately 63.06 plus acres from existing employment E to medium density residential M and 3.04 plus acres from public institutional P to mixed use MU, generally located at the northeast corner of Loma Vista Road and McDavid Road. Discussion only. And this also does have a public hearing, but we're going to go ahead and have you do the presentation first. And I will like to mention that unfortunately on the YouTube, we're not going to be able to forward those or to not be able to address those comments. We will forward those to staff though. Awesome.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, as mentioned, I'd like to go ahead and do a quick presentation on the request, and then we'll open up the item for public hearing as required. As stated, this request by CVL Consultants on behalf of Maricopa 64 Partners LLC is for the proposed general plan land use change for 66 approximate acres from existing employment designation and public institutional to medium density and mixed use. In regards to the development process, this development is in the early stages of right now it's the general conformance of the general plan, which will then follow by the rezoning, preliminary plat, and final plat status of it. So we're in kind of like a part one of a multi-part stage itself. Here are the general site informations on the property. Again, it's the total site acreage is 66 plus or minus acres. Includes parcel number 510-170-011G and 005B. Currently, there's no site address as that will be planned as part of the development process later down the road. The existing zoning on the property is CI2 industrial zone. The existing general plan land use designation is employment, and the proposal again is to modify the general plan land use designation of employment to medium density residential and mixed use. The subject site shown in the yellow star borders the railroad line to the north, Loma Road alignment on the west, McDavid Road on the south, and CenturyLink Yard facility to the east. This is the general plan map of the existing land use with the subject site. Again, the subject site is the bordered area, and the subject site has the land use designation of E, employment, in that gray area, and also a part of it as public institutional. Oh, excuse me. This is what the proposal will be, is to modify the land use map from existing employment to medium density residential, M, and also the portion of that P on the eastern side will be to a mixed use designation. The existing land use designation of employment is described as somewhat of a broad designation, to accommodate numerous types of development patterns such as light manufacturing, professional offices, and medical facilities. The existing land use designation of that eastern portion of public institutional, again, a smaller portion of the site describes the land use for school campuses, hospitals, churches, water treatment facilities, landfill sites, public library facilities, city offices, public cemeteries, and utility sites. What is being proposed is a medium density residential, which is described as truly a planned single-family residential neighborhoods, which includes significant open space, recreational, and cultural opportunities, including schools, churches, and neighborhood facilities. Medium-density residential developments are expected to contribute to off-site infrastructure needs for which they create demand, including roadways, bridges, and grade-separated crossings. With the smaller portion of mixed-use designation, that is also described as a creative design development combining commercial, office, and residential uses with a true combination of interrelated pedestrian or walkable type facilities. So before we get into more of the deep of what the general plan is or what this request is for, I want to kind of just remind our commissioners of what the general plan is not. This request as it relates to the city's voter-approved general plan. It is to provide a framework for all interrelated functions of the city, such as police, fire, infrastructure, and land use planning of the city. That's what a general plan is truly intended. It is an expression and a statement of the city's policies designed to achieve the citizens' vision and the means of enhancing quality of life in Maricopa. So it's somewhat of just a policy statement, or like this is what we stand for. The general plan is not, however, a tool to promote special interests. It is not a rigid document. So in reality, it's really an adaptable document. It is not a detailed policy or ordinance for specific properties of an area. It is not to be utilized as a capital improvement or infrastructure improvement plan, and it is not rezoning at all. It gives us more of a guiding tool of the city to how we implement policies such as the zoning code, building codes, engineering standards itself, but at least it gives us a general framework of how to move forward. The criteria for the major amendment is based on two criteria. Number one is acres in terms of what is considered minor and a major. This request surpassed the threshold of 40 acres when it came to requesting a land use change from employment to a medium density residential. I mean, it's somewhat technically of a downzoned in a way, or reducing the land use type of impact from an employment density to a medium density. And also, the second criteria is the capital cost of burden to the city when classifying an amendment as either major or minor. The context of the site expansion is to consider infrastructure warrants possible capital improvements, which staff has identified as it being a major amendment, possible improvements to McDavid Road, Loma Road, Honeycutt Avenue, Maricopa Road intersection, which as part of this process and part of the next process, staff is conditioning that preliminary traffic report analysis shall be conditioned as part of formal rezoning or plating application and to be accepted by the city engineer prior to approval, which conditions being proposed to the staff report to that effect. As part of the general plan, we typically like to get a conceptual land use idea of how the land use will look like in a way. And what the applicants provide to us is very conceptual in nature. This is just giving an idea of what that medium density will look like in relation to the open space itself. And also to get an idea of what those land use colors may look like, just an idea of what that land use pattern can be envisioned in terms of a medium density residential. I do want to bring up the fact that, at least this is not to say this is what the plan is going to look like, but at least it gets you an idea of what the possibilities could be. We are working with the developer to see what ways we can incorporate other types of variety of housing designs, maybe some alley loaded or Z lots or anything that gets creative cluster housing within the development. It's not to say that this may happen, but at least we're working with the developer to see other variety of housing choices in reference to the city's housing plan. And also note, having that mixed-use development in there, obviously with the amount of traffic along McDavid Road has been reduced with the John Wayne Parkway overpass, having that type of employment or corridor down there may not be better suited. So having at least a small component of mixed-use designation for opportunities for other housing choices is also complementary. As required by our general plan, the following goals and objectives are consideration for the proposed request. What the applicant has demonstrated to us in terms of the goals and objectives met in the land use, circulation, parks, recreation, open space, our growth areas, which is referenced in your exhibits A, pages 11 to 23, where the applicant has identified specific goals and objectives, how this request continues to meet the objectives and goals of the general plan of the city. As required by public comments, as required by the zoning code and state statute, the applicant has followed requirements of the city's zoning code for public hearing, where advertisement for the public hearing meeting was published in the Maricopa Modern Casa Grande Dispatch. Notification letters were sent out to all property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and meeting sign advertising of the public hearings was posted on the property diligently. Being with COVID pandemic, a virtual neighborhood meeting was held. And in addition, as part of any major amendment of the city, it is state statute requirement that a 60-day notice is published on the city's website. A 60-day notice is published to, or at least given information to neighboring cities and other state agencies, which that was done by staff. And you can refer to the Citizen Participation Report, Exhibit B, for further details. In terms of the recommendation, this amendment is consistent with the general plan. Any change in district boundaries is necessary to achieve the balance of land uses desired by the city, and consistent with the general plan is to increase inventory of land use within the given zoning district. We also feel that the amendment will promote the growth of the city in an orderly manner and protect public health, safety, peace, comfort, and general welfare. No action at this time is being recommended, being that this is only just to give you a first glimpse of it. As required by state statute, we're required to have 2 public hearings for this request and 2 public hearings at 2 different locations. So the next time you'll be seeing this request will be at the Copper Sky Recreational Facility 2 weeks from now for actual recommendation. But at this point, staff is here to just present general information, background information, and also to answer any questions as well. Madam Chair, Commissioners, with that, I would advise that, I think at this point, Jordan may want to just present hers, just from the applicant side, and then we can open up the public hearing for comment.
Wow, thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Chair and members of the Commission, for your records, I'm Jordan Rose with Rose Law Group, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Chase Emerson, who owns the property. And also with me is Cohen Van Loo, the president of Cohen Van Loo, Ryan Weed, and Julie Vermillion here today. We all came down because this is really an important piece of property. We appreciate your staff support And frankly, we haven't been able to go to a hearing for 6 months, so we're so excited. We can't hardly stand it. So thank you for that. But thank you to Rudy and your staff for your staff support, and Rick for working with us. Today, as Rudy said, you're not voting on anything. We just wanted to give you kind of the flavor of what this general plan amendment is about. And then within about a month or so, we'll probably come back with a rezoning case so you can see the very detailed, and we can talk about the details. But things have really changed at McDavid Estates since 2004. And I don't know if all of you have been here since 2004, but in 2004, this was planned as industrial because it made sense at that time. And now the development patterns have changed so dramatically. We've got the beautiful Maricopa Meadows to the south, and it's just not really a place that you'd want light industrial truck traffic going near the school there and all of that. And so I think that's why staff's supportive of our change, and it makes sense. It's pretty much now in the heart of a family community, and it needs to change with the times. This was the industrial site that was approved before, and as you know, because you drive by it all the time, it's definitely in need of a little redevelopment just to clean it up. The current approved light industrial project will actually generate more traffic than the proposed project that we're proposing. And we can talk more about that in our zoning case, but that's according to our traffic impact studies. And we're working with your public works to make sure that we provide all of the necessary improvements on streets and traffic lights or roundabouts and all of those kinds of things, and your staff will bring those back to you. The entrances were to be the least impactful to Maricopa Meadows, and I'll just end with saying, this is currently a blighted area, and we're hopeful to bring a diverse housing product here to McDavid Estates and be more compatible with the neighbors and the existing residents that are around there right now and into the future. So thank you for giving us the time to talk to you for a few minutes tonight, and I'd take any questions, or certainly in 2 weeks when we come back, we'll take more questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think at this point, we'll go ahead and open it up for public hearing. And again, for our virtual land, if there's any comments there, those will be forwarded to staff. And anybody else that'd like to come up, we're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you. Let's just open it up to see if any of the commissioners has any comments or questions, and we'll start with Commissioner Sharp. How about you?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring to Rudy's attention, thank you so much for emphasizing the traffic impact. I know that's something that as a city we have been really trying to wrap our heads around, and I think by emphasizing what the traffic impact is going to be to the residents of Maricopa Meadows and the adjacent property is very important, so thank you for that. Just one other comment in regards to the project itself and the proposed zone change. I think the representative of the Rose Law is actually correct. It's a currently a lot of area underutilized, and it doesn't make sense for that to be industrial. There was a time before the 337 alignment where that may make sense. But now that we are on Maricopa, no longer separated by railroad tracks, I think that by continuing the residential development as an extension of Maricopa Meadows, it makes sense. So thank you for bringing this, and I applaud you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharp. We'll start on this side. Commissioner Frank, anything?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Irving?
Yes, I have no problem with the 63.0. Somebody please explain to me about the 3.04 acres that we're taking away from schools and public institutions.
In terms of the applicant requesting that to be, some type of non-residential component, if we were to pull up that site plan, Abel, go back to the PowerPoint presentation. And I'm going to go back a couple so you can just see this. So the way, and this is just from staff's perspective, it is disconnected. That red component of a mixed-use designation can be kept as public institutional. That's all on the applicant's desire. It obviously has to be something. It can't be disconnected. Right now, it has a disconnection with the infrastructure that's out there with Orbital and also that large cell tower component out there. So we're also fumbling with how to actually have that connection piece of the mixed use connect with the rest of this. Staff is not objecting to any type of other land use to keeping it public institutional, but at least providing a mixed use gives it opportunities for other types of land use designations. So at least it's not catered to a single type of land use category. It gives it some options out there. So it could be some type of office businesses, residential, or even some type of social services facilities as well.
My question is, are you saying, or is the city saying, we won't need any more public schools out that way?
No, not that. No, it's just in terms of how we saw this, it was, we couldn't really say it should be a medium density or a public institution. I think it just has to be one way to connect it itself. So if at all, Jordan, I'm not sure if...
I'm not understanding at all. My main concern is we're taking committed land designated as a plan for the development of schools, and you're saying we don't need that anymore. I mean, that's what this says, the 3.4 acres. I'm just trying to figure out why.
Yeah. Jordan, you want to ask?
Chair and Commissioner Irving, I think the public institution designation allows for things like schools and other public sort of uses. And so I don't think this particular site was ever really planned for a school. In fact, it was planned for industrial or for some sort of a public use that wouldn't be a school. Maybe it was some, I don't know, utility sort of use, something like that. In this particular case, we are working with the school district, and we'll have more information next time when we come to you about their feelings about a school site in this particular location. This wasn't something that was desired at this point. So it had been planned for maybe utilities or something.
Well, if it was planned for utilities, why did somebody designate it public institutions?
Chair and Commissioner Irving, I think that's the designation that your city has for schools, but also for these sort of city municipal uses. And so it never has been, in fact, until you said that today, I went, what? Why would it? That's why I went to talk to my client. Why was it designated as a school? And then I looked at it, and it's a public institution, which is all of your city services. So maybe it was even designated as some sort of trash pickup, or I don't know if Rudy knows that.
Yeah, and also, Commissioner, understand that the general plan of the city, it's the land use itself is just broad. It's not parcel based. It just gives it a general location where it was. So obviously, that large P was broad enough to say that when the city designate that as part of in 2005, as part of understanding that's where the high school is at. They broadly just said that's some type of public institution that include the high school. But as Jordan mentioned, public institution can be any type of city service facility or any institutional facility itself.
I understand that, not to beat it to death, but I remember very well holding hearings on that, and the request was we needed more schools south of the tracks. And there is only one. All the charters are north. So I guess all I'm saying is, where's the commitment? It just seems like, and again, I have no problem with the project. It seems great. I like the 63, but I just have a real problem with wasn't meant for that anyway. Come on, give me a break. I meant somebody at some time, I just hope they didn't arbitrarily label it for the fun of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming, and I remember those hearings really well, about we needed to have more growth as far as education, even a community college or a four-year college, south of the tracks. So I just would hate to see us abandon that commitment, which clearly we need out that way for a lot of reasons. I mean, that's all. It just, when you come back next time, at least, I would like something from somebody to say that, yeah, we are setting aside something out that way, because we understand if Maricopa is going to grow the way it's going to grow, we need more schools, be it public or charter, south. That's all.
That's kind of a small site, though. It's only 3 acres.
It's way too small.
Yeah,
You
well,
need
so
six-
we're not going to put a school on there anyway.
Well, I think to me it's more the concept of it, that if we're not going to do it, again, either way, I would support this. But it's just sort of like, okay, if the city knows and their plan says we're eventually looking for more schools, maybe even a 4-year college, which would go out that way, that we let the citizens know we're not abandoning that for just another development.
Sure.
You know, is nice, but and our schools are all public and charter so overcrowded now. That's why we're building a new high school. I just think it would be in somebody's best interest to say, you know, you're right, we couldn't put a school there, but here's what the city is doing in lieu of that. That's all.
Got it.
Joachim?
Just a few observations. It's going to be interesting to see if we do approve this and we continue through the next 3 steps, how we deal with the roads issues, because I know McDavid, Loma, the intersections at Honeycutt and Maricopa, and the overall traffic plan are going to need a lot of attention. Also, the package that we were given to review is interspersed with discussion on floodplain and drainage issues, and it's going to be interesting to see how you approach those. Water, I see that there are 2 water suppliers, Global and the Maricopa Consolidated Domestic Water Company. It's going to also be quite interesting to see how you balance that out. That's pretty much what I would like to just get more information as we proceed.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, Commissioners, again, just to reiterate, this general plan request is for the land use change itself. Jordan did mention, and there is a PED rezoning also in review as part of this. Will be coming to you at a later date, actually fairly soon, because as part of this, it actually came at concurrently. It's just this one got a little ahead of the PED itself. So those questions, and answers will be at least resolved as part of PED application request within probably the next 60 days or so.
We'll be watching closely.
Yes.
The only comment that I want to throw in is just a request to the applicant. When the next notification has to go out for the next step, is that we increase it. I know you're not required because it's our rules, right? It's what we have right now, but to go from 300 to 600 feet, just so that we can ensure that we have a little bit more transparency and we do have the general feel of that area. Because unfortunately, as you guys know, that's really just a whole bunch of blighted area, and we'd really like to get some back if necessary. All right, anybody else have anything else?
I completely agree with that sentiment. Increasing it to 600 feet if possible.
They're shaking their head, Commissioner Sharp. All right, nothing else, we'll move on to the next one, 4.2.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you. All right, this one also is a public hearing. GPA 20-05, Anglin Dairy, a request by RVI Plumbing and, I'm sorry, let's start that again. Anglin Dairy, a request by RVI Planning and Landscape Architect on behalf of DA Holdings LLC to amend a general plan future land use map for approximately 493 acres from existing low density residential L, medium density residential M, and mixed use MU to a master plan community MPC generally located at the northeast corner of State Route 238 and Green Road. Discussion only. You guys make that any easier?
It's just our format, sorry about that, but you did a great job. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Again, my name is Ryan Wozniak, Senior Planner at the City of Maricopa, and it's my pleasure to present this item for your public hearing process. And so GPA 2005 is our case number, Anglin Dairy. Diving in, this is public hearing number 1, discussion only for RVI Planning representing DA Holdings, the landowner, for a general plan future land use map amendment. This is a size, subject site is about 493 acres. The general plan amendment is for the future land use map. It's not a zoning, as stated earlier in the earlier presentation about what a general plan amendment is versus what it is not. I'll save time by not re-reviewing that. The existing land use designations include low-density residential, medium-density residential, and mixed use. So proposed is to not completely lose that concept of variety of housing types and mixed-use land development, but more give some flexibility through the umbrella of a master planned community. So here we are with the entitlement process, and we have ourselves the general plan here. And we typically would move on and within the umbrella of these land uses, move into a rezone that complies with that general plan category. For mixed-use development, you would typically see a development review permit, but for subdivision, a lot of housing product, that would be a subdivision process. And then you would get into improvement plans and building permits to improve the site and the structures that go vertical, right? So here we are in the very early entitlement process, well before we get to any construction permits. The authority of the general plan rests within City Council's authority. This body is a recommending body. Later down the line, when it comes to the pre-plat and the development review permits and building permits, well, that part 3 is where planning and zoning really has the final say, and then hands off to staff to deal with all the technical building permits. So the location of this is a little ways to the west of our main thoroughfare, John Wayne Parkway, at the Green Road alignment. So it's at the northwest corner of Green Road and State Route 238. Some people consider it Smith-Inky Road out there, but technically I don't think it actually has that name designation. It's just State Route 238. So in the surrounding contexts, we have to the north the Gila River Reservation. It is not it's vacant land, not really designated with a general plan or existing zoning that the city has researched. To the east, we have some state, or to the east we have, sorry, I've got my east and west copied a little wrong. So to the east, there's not the Auction Southern Dunes Golf Course, that it would be to the west. We have the general plan designation of research, development, and commercial, that is state land. To the south, we have across State Route 238, medium density residential and industrial zone, also vacant and or agricultural use. To the west, now we do find ourselves in the Auction Southern Dunes Golf Course, not really with a general plan land use or existing zoning that the city has in its portfolio there. So in the scheme of this case, GPA 20-05, we have those existing land uses of low density, medium density residential, and mixed use. All these designations could come together with a variety of housing and economic development opportunities, including commercial, office, and residential components. Proposed master plan community, very similar mix of variety of housing, economic development opportunities, commercial, office, and residential components. It's just giving some flexibility in the range of densities and how those densities get laid out across the site, residential areas, adequate open space, schools, churches, neighborhood facilities, coming under a master plan community envelope, which is supposed to be more thought out, more balanced, better transitions, not arbitrary lines as to where one designation goes versus the other designation. So potential win there. We have major in scope. This proposal comes to you because the general plan administration section sees this acreage criteria over 160 acres as triggering the major general plan amendment cycle. Here's those land uses composed on the map, with the north section of the site being all low density residential. As you make your way south, you find yourself moving into medium density residential and mixed use. That's a pretty large amount of acreage for mixed use for the site, and feasibility, given that amount of density, given that amount of available rooftops and economic development potential or spending power immediately located in the area, the applicant came to us, looking for justification as to why that amount of mixed use, maybe a master plan community, giving us more variety of mixing of uses on the site rather than these hard lines would make sense. And so this is the conceptual development plan that they have proposed. This is not a zoning. These are broadly categories that could be the envisioned zoning type of case that you may see after something like this would be approved, if approved. So there are some concepts that are worth thinking through and fleshing out at the general plan amendment case level so that people, as they approach the zoning process, kind of have a better feel of how does traffic flow happen throughout the site, how is the site accessed, what is the expectations for the State Route 238, what is the city's goals, what are the state's goals, what is the development goals, trying to find a happy balance between all of those things. And so we find the mixed use trying to take advantage of the highly accessible route of State Route 238 at the Green Road intersection. And that intersection may be or is currently being evaluated for what that intersection can do for this facility type as it approaches the urbanized areas of the city of Maricopa. And so it is conceived potentially that there would be a roundabout at the intersection of Green Road and State Route 238, so that the highway condition can then find a traffic calming measure at the intersection, safe measure, a roundabout that would then transition to more of an urbanized highway or urbanized parkway condition to that to the west of that, or to the east of that intersection. And internally into the site, you're seeing the possibility of some collector roads, managing that traffic into the site, Nightingale Drive alignments swooping up, serving the middle zone of that residential community, that residential component. We have acknowledgement from the consultants that they'll acknowledge all of the trails planned for the area, try to get a nice centralized open space along with park spaces that would serve the immediate residential developments. And then we have mostly a mix of housing types that come into through the proposal with potential multifamily residential on the lower density side, and then higher density multifamily residential on the higher side, all surrounding sort of that mixed use concept. So the transitions in the open space and the balance of this plan seem to make sense on this conceptual level, but all of that again would be slated for more further evaluation at the zoning level, where the traffic impact analysis is and more detailed analysis would come to this body for a recommendation. So hopefully that was a thorough enough review of what's being proposed as far as the concept goes. That type of presentation was presented at the at the neighborhood meeting as part of the public review process. And per the city's zoning code and per the state statutes, the major general plan amendment does have a higher threshold, higher level of expectation for the public engagement, public review process. So that neighborhood meeting was held via Zoom, given that we're in the coronavirus COVID days. Furthermore, it went out from staff to all of our neighboring jurisdictions, to all the state departments that are required, and notifying them of this change. The virtual meeting was provided a synopsis in the citizen participation report. Some questions and answers were provided between the applicants and the members of the community. Staff did not receive any official comment, any written comment. I did have one phone conversation with a gentleman who was concerned about the traffic levels on State Route 238. After kind of considering that and considering the balances of land uses and the trips potentially generated by that very large mixed-use piece of the general plan as it exists today, without a TIA to help really flush out that analysis, it would be our expectation that there would not be much of a difference necessarily in the trips generated if that build-out happened as it is today versus what's being proposed before you. So as far as traffic analysis goes, there might not be necessarily that much of a difference. At the time of this staff was reported, though, no formal comments were received. Further analysis, just for your consideration, Again, this is a major general plan amendment, finding that major general plan amendment cycle here that has to be wrapped up in the calendar year. That was triggered by the 160 acres per the plan administration section. The general intent of the plan remains consistent. A little bit more flexibility to the developments and market conditions. The plan continues to offer a variety of housing and economic development opportunities to the site. And 3, the proposal helps meet a number of general plan goals, which are listed in the next 2 slides. Minimize the conflicts between land uses, a mix of land uses, and the master plan community really does help meet the intent of minimizing those conflicts. Less of a nuisance to the area than the existing agricultural use. And so by meeting that market viability aspect, maybe this finds its way into the development cycle sooner, relieving neighbors of that potential impact. To assure the development of diverse housing stock in both dwelling type and density, well, that conceptual plan and master plan community as it's codified would definitely help meet that objective. We would expect that through the master plan community definition and subdivision processes that would follow, we would definitely seek variety of housing types. And we have the need, as the housing needs assessment plan definitely laid out, we are certainly highly overstocked percentage-wise in single-family detached homes versus the number of multifamily homes that the buyer perspectives and renter perspectives that are anticipated to meet that demand. There's a goal to create safe and functional pedestrian ways, bicycle routes, alternative modes, travel modes throughout Maricopa, seeing that the applicants have acknowledged the city's trail plan, is working with staff so far in circulation concerns. We would see that this is helping meet that goal. Ensuring new development provides the resources to establish the infrastructure and services needed to serve the development. Again, the applicant has shown the cooperation to serve all the infrastructure needs and continues to work with the city as a city and them work with ADOT to further envision State Route 237 or 238 to meet the needs of the area. And with that, that concludes my presentation for the benefit of the commission, and I advise that we take a pause to hold a public hearing.
All right. Go ahead and do that first. Public hearing. Sorry. 647, we'll go ahead and again on any. Have to forward your comments. See nobody approach, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. All right, and we'll open it up to commissioners to see if there's any comments. Start with Commissioner Sharp.
No comments.
Start on this side, Commissioner Yocum.
Considering we're looking at a master plan, I think we're looking at something that would be a more unified and appropriate land designation for this particular piece. I think the designation would allow for holistic design that addresses land circulation and open space factors. Also, the benefit of an NPC designation is that the precise size, location, configuration can all be determined at a later time when the zoning process starts to occur. Use of the site as a dairy right now is becoming non-compatible considering the direction that we seem to be going in that particular area. A mixed-use concept can change through the rezoning process also. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Irving. Commissioner Frank?
I have a couple questions. So right now we got low density residential there. What is a typical lot size for that kind of designation versus what's proposed in there?
So yeah, the low density residential would be anywhere from like 15,000 square feet to 9,000 square feet. And we're moving to more of with the conceptual development plan that's been slated with more of a 7,000 to 5,000 square foot residential lot.
Do we have any existing low-density residential in the modern style developments? Any new builds that are currently doing low density?
There are no low-density subdivisions in the pipeline of Maricopa's housing development.
So my concern is that we're getting kind of monolithic, or not so much anymore with the apartments coming in, but almost everything we're getting is medium density product. And it just would be nice to get some more diversity the other way.
Sure.
A little bit larger lot kind of product. So I kind of like that we have that option over there now. So that's just a thought. Also, it'll get worked out probably in moving forward, but some major floodway going through there with the vehicle. And so that's something we need to watch for. And you mentioned a roundabout at 238. Is that just a three-legged roundabout, or we have plans to go south on Green Road ever?
So ultimately, what's currently being analyzed could be a four-legged roundabout for Green Road to continue south. I know that there are future transportation concerns in the pipeline, looking at what the potential other overpasses might be suitable for the area to the west of 347. I can ask Joshua Plum, city engineer who's oversees long-range transportation planning, to speak more to that if you'd like.
Good evening. Ryan's absolutely correct in what he was saying. We are exploring a fourth leg for what that roundabout might look like, with a potential overpass at Union Pacific for Green Road. That's shown in our area transportation plan as an option there, and it is something that we're exploring also. We might be looking at some future capital project for design to analyze that area.
Okay, thank you. That would impact the other item we heard tonight too, as far as transportation goes.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, great, thank you. I just had a couple of comments and maybe a couple questions. Again, I'm just going to reiterate, requesting 600 feet for the next leg of this. I know we can't do it now, and already done the first virtual meeting, which leads me into my second question, or first question, actually. What was the attendance like on that one and the comments? Because I don't see anything on that.
Yeah, so you were provided Exhibit E and as a printout prior to today's meeting. I know that the Legistar link that went out prior to the meeting had an error in the citizen participation report. I do not have a copy in front of me, but if my memory serves me correctly, I believe there was 3 participants. I believe we may have the applicant on our Zoom call if you would like them to address that question.
I'm just curious as to what the overall feel from the initial virtual meeting was from the residents, well, the land use owners. I was just gonna say, there's no residents, but the land use people. I mean, what was the general overall feel for it? I mean, I'm sure it's a big change and there might be some feedback. I'm kind of wondering, were they ultimately negatively affected by it? Were they intrigued by it? Were they excited? I mean, what was...
Rather than give you my interpretation, I would like to maybe ask the applicant to unmute themselves on Zoom and give you their perspective.
Okay.
But before you do that, I also have an issue from the citizen participation report. That was comment number 3. Will this site be impacted by the recent state legislation related to the Lower Santa Cruz Valley Authority? And the response was, the project team was unaware of this legislation and will look into it further as to its relevance. So I'd like to hear a comment on that too.
That one would be better handled by Josh. I know that. But Annie, are you available online on the Zoom link to answer a question? Thank you. We can. Thank you so much.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Annie Voss. I'm with RBI, representing the development team tonight. Thank you for letting us call in virtually tonight, and thank you, Ryan, for doing such a great job giving the presentation and overview of our project. In terms of the councilman's question regarding the neighborhood meeting, we send out our neighborhood notification letter to, just going back and looking, it looks like it was approximately 15 addresses, and we had, I'm trying to remember, but 3 or 4 participants who actually joined in on the neighborhood meeting. The vibe of that neighborhood meeting was very positive. It was our neighbors both close to us and others who were interested in developing nearby. The issues that we mostly talked about had to do with drainage and wash and wanting to collaborate with our direct neighbor, wanting to collaborate on some future drainage understandings as both of the projects develop moving forward. So it was a positive neighborhood meeting, not a lot of participation, but we did reach out to everyone within our notification area.
So I would take it then Ak-Chin was not against it and they were okay with it?
So in our, yeah, and from staff's perspective, when we've notified all of our neighboring jurisdictions, Ak-Chin was certainly one of those, and we have not heard directly from Ak-Chin on this item.
Yeah, I do see that they were notified, and that was really, without throwing that out there, that was my main concern, was because if you go back to the map, you'll see that the major west end of that community butts up to their property, and I wanted to make sure that they were okay with it.
Okay.
And that just kind of brings me back to my last comment, question, or concern, and I'm kind of wondering, I see a lot of different areas and talks about how much area is each area, but it doesn't say anything about the open space. Do we know how big that open space is going to be and what the potential initial thoughts? I know we're not asking for conceptual at this point, but what are we kind of looking at that?
So we certainly would be applying the open space zoning requirements at the time of a zoning permit. Conceptually, though, the central open space seems to be about the right scale when looking at the conceptual plan, but that does not go into the detail of how many pocket parks and neighborhood open space corridors or trail systems that would immediately serve those communities would also potentially add to that concept. So it's kind of hard to give you an acreage through that conceptual plan because there would be a lot more corridors and pockets of open space outside of that major centralized open space.
Right, no, I get that and I understand that. My only concern is the fact that we're really looking at this as the master plan community, and this will kind of be like the first one that we've touched in the way of the master plan community, which means that you live, breathe, and eat in this facility. The only time that you would leave would be to work. And so I was kind of wondering what that open space for entertainment, like, is it going to be like a park or is it like, I mean, that's kind of where I was looking at, because that's the concept of a master plan community, is to where the only reason that you would ever have to leave would be for the work aspect. We have the mixed use, which could include stuff like that. And the open space is what I was kind of looking for in the way of, have they thought about the entertainment factor in that? I understand the pockets of, you know, the individual parks and stuff, but, you know, like maybe a lake or, you know, tennis courts and stuff like that is kind of what I was looking for.
Yeah, diversity of open space will certainly be a topic that we can explore further, and if it suits or if it pleases the commission, we can even help spell out more detailed with or first put the challenge to the applicant and see what they come back with. Also, stipulations are another aspect to at least capture that spirit, and then leave it to staff to work with the applicant in future applications when it comes to zoning to meet that challenge. You are right with the fact that the master plan community is meant to certainly capture a fair amount of trips internally to the project and relieve some of that traffic generated outside the community, outside of commuting hours. But obviously, these types of master plan communities take time to build out, and the city is certainly not the first zoning case that the city would see in the master plan community designation within our zoning map. So with that in mind, these things do take time to build out.
Understood. I just don't want us to leave anything out there. I want everything on the table so that, we're not saying this is not, we want to set the, I don't want to say precedent, but we want to set the standards of what we're really looking for. We want to have that true master plan community because it will be a selling point for the project down the road as well. I mean, you got a golf course right there. What else are we going to offer? What's the advantage of that community, considering it's a little bit farther out than the heart of the city, so it might be to their advantage to look at that in that way of a scope so that they can attract that, and then it's only going to help build off of that. So having the golf course next door is going to be great, but what else is they going to be able to offer? That's only my point, but I'm going to stick with my 600. Mr. Yoakum.
Looking at the existing conditions as they were outlined in the material, we do have some major roadway improvements which we're going to need, especially Green Road. I imagine something is going to happen to Green Road. And these are things that I think no matter what we put in there, these are things we're going to have to really look at closely. There's a major wash corridor in the southwest corner, how we're going to deal with that. And the west portion is located in the floodplain, which is probably going to require a CLMOR from FEMA or from whatever. So just like to see what happens with those issues.
Okay. You had brought up legislation with regards to the wash corridor earlier.
Pardon?
It was part of the public hearing comments.
Yeah, the public hearing comments. Would you like to hear Josh respond to that comment about during the public hearing?
Yeah, I think I would.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Yoakum. The Lower Santa Cruz River Association is not likely to have any impact on the city with any of the work that it is going to be doing. The city is also doing an independent project, the North Santa Cruz Wash, that will address flooding on the east side of the city, but will not likely have any impact on this area over here. As Commissioner Frank rightly pointed out, that is the vehicle tributary or vehicle wash over there. It's a separate watershed that's feeding into that, so that will likely be addressed through other means when the site develops.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
All right. Anything else, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. 5.0, report for commission and or staff.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the only thing I need to report is just upcoming meetings. Again, just a reminder, 2 weeks from today is our next P&Z Commission meeting. It will be held at Copper Sky with the general plan major amendments. We're required to have 2 separate meeting locations for the P&Z at 2 different locations within the city. Please confirm with Peter on your attendance. I think we're okay. With that one, it's a little bit different. We're not going to have the plexiglass to separate you guys in a way, so please be advised just to probably wear your mask during the meeting if you want to attend. If you're uncomfortable attending with the social distancing requirements or prefer to Skype in or Zoom in via conference, Abel will be there as well to help us facilitate that, so you can call in as well and also attend via Zoom, but you're more than welcome to still attend as well. Okay. So I'm hearing that Zoom is not be viable, but you can still call in, conference line in. We'll still give you guys a presentation, and we can easily just vote, verbally discuss which slides are being discussed. The other thing I just want to make mention, we're not seeing any potential action on November in October. So the next potential P&Z Commission meeting after September 28th, we just want to give you the heads up in terms of holidays, is November 9th, after the September 28th. Other than that, if anything, just development activity. Development activity for the past 9 months of 2020 has been very, even with the pandemic, has been very high, or actually higher than usual, which is interesting, but it's great to see that a lot of the development community is still as efficient. So As of today, we've already received 98 single-family residential permits that were issued. Last month, we hit a high, the previous month, of hitting 150 single-family residential permits for 2 straight months, which you haven't seen that since kind of like almost like the late pre-recession, or at least before the recession started. But it's interesting what's happening out there, that the inventory of single-family residential lots is slowly dwindling down, which is why we're seeing a lot of developers coming our way to get more entitlements with these general plan amendment requests and other applications requests. So development is definitely not stopping in the near future. We're still definitely seeing a up and up and things like that. So
It's definitely a seller's market right now.
yes, it is.
Friend sold her house in 4 days. Crazy.
Yes. Madam Chair, Commissioners, that's all I have for now. Thank you all.
Appreciate that. Just real quick, Michael, are you going to be able to attend the September 28th, 2 weeks from now?
Yes, I should be able to.
You guys are okay, Commissioner? Well, looks like we're going to have quorum at least. Thank you. All right, anything else, guys? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Commissioner Sharp. Talk to you soon.
Take care, everyone. Be safe.
Bye.